Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard.
Hello, Communication Queens, and welcome back to another Communication Queen Quickie. We are continuing on our podcasting strategy for client lead generation, JV partnerships, and monetization of your podcast in the way that if you have a podcast, you would like to have that. Since last week we went into the intention of your strategy, now we're going to get into some nitty-gritty of how you can actually set up your podcast to really wow and dazzle your potential guests who you would love to court and see and explore where that relationship goes. So the guests could be, a potential ideal client, especially if you target and interview those who are in the niche of your ideal customer avatar. So let's say you have a mompreneur podcast and you're interviewing and you coach mompreneurs who are high-level mompreneurs doing anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million in sales. And you focus on interviewing only mompreneurs who are doing anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million in sales. That is how you are talking directly to your ideal customer avatar. So being very clear instead of being generic and saying, oh, my podcast is for everyone, or it's a business podcast, it's an entrepreneurship podcast. Well, what is the services that your business provides that's backing the podcast? And how can you have those conversations with the people that you would love to convert in some way to your world? Doesn't mean in a commercial way where they will necessarily be a client. That you could turn out to be something even better than a client, where there's exponential possibilities. It could be a partnership. It could be a joint venture opportunity. It could be something more collaborative and maybe a special extra podcast episode. And I've seen this having coached leaders for about 7 years, is especially in the coaching industry, when you approach something solely as a lead generation strategy to get the client, it can work. And also it can feel gross. And also from a mindset perspective, if we were to chunk up into a mindset space of where is that coming from? If you're only looking for that one avenue of how it could convert, you're in scarcity. So let's shift into abundance as to how that could abundantly serve in multiple different ways and multiple different facets for both your business and for the client's business. And how to set up the strategy is first targeting who you interview to be in alignment with who you serve. That's one piece of the strategy. Secondly, when you are guiding someone through the process of your podcast booking system, ideally you have some sort of automated system using something like Calendly or Acuity so that your podcast guests can just easily and effortlessly book in and they don't have to go through 50 hoops of back and forth emails. But if you have a system in place, and making sure your system is fully optimized to wow and dazzle and make the podcast guest feel fully supported, knowledgeable, and understanding of what is going on. This is what leadership is in communication. So what this is called in sales, it's called setting the frame. So you are preparing someone for what they are about to experience, which unconsciously they are giving you their permission by continuing to see and say, okay, we're going to continue to go on with this podcast interview. So if you prepare people in advance for what is going to come, then, and not only just what is to come in the interview, but here is how we structure it. Here's what we like to do after. Here is what is to come. And then having a system in place and this is a system that I give in our Communication Queens program. I give you our entire podcast booking system as to how we book our guests, the systems that has been praised by our 8-figure podcast guests on our Crown Yourself podcast, because those systems are essential. So here's a few of the basics. 1, have an automated booking system. Super simple. 2, make sure you have some follow-up emails, a confirmation, direct to calendar booking, like so that they add it, it's already on their calendar. They don't have to worry about it. Have some sort of email follow-up that's like, here's how you prepare. Like if you have a video podcast, there are people who show up to a podcast thinking it's only going to be audio. And so if they're not prepared, you don't want your guests feeling all awkward because they didn't put on their lipstick today or like do their mascara because they thought they weren't going to be on video. So give your guest guidelines as for how the podcast is going to go. Make sure you get the guest's bio, resume, social links, website, all of that. What we use is we use a Calendly and we use Typeform to gather all of our guest materials so that we make sure that we have everything in one place. It keeps everything very streamlined and simple. And then make sure that after you also have some form of follow-up system. So follow-up emails, maybe a follow-up download of like, here's, our social links. Make sure you follow us. If you post anything about us, we'll tag you, and just sharing in that reciprocity. And then if you have anything else as far as like what you would like to add as far as your services as for what you do, that's where you can always add in like some form of Typeform or survey of like, are you interested in this? If not, if they hit no, then don't send them to the next link where it's a booking page. Have some logic jumps, as it's called in Typeform, like build the system so that it will skip to the like final page so that they don't go through like, oh, I already said no to this. And it's kind of like, ugh, okay. So you want your guests to come away with an amazing experience where they feel fully seen, fully supported, fully heard, and also well produced and structured. The last thing that I'm going to say that in your immediate deliverables you want to have to ensure you're attracting really professional, high caliber guests is having some form of legal release, a media release. I guarantee if you have some form of celebrity on, they will provide you with one if you don't have one because they want to be at no risk. So make sure that you have some form of legal protection in the space just so that you are able to produce. You are using someone's voice. You are reproducing their voice. You are reproducing their likeness. You are marketing them. You never want a podcast guest to come back and say, you're not marketing me correctly. It can get yucky. So make sure by showing all the things and being very transparent and open, you gain their permission and you gain buy-in. So that should you decide that that person could be a right fit and you propose as a possibility a stronger commitment than the first date. The first date is the podcast. The stronger commitment is like some form of partnership, client exploratory call, etc. Then you have already prepped them that is something that is a possibility and that is something that you're looking for. So be honest, upfront, transparent, have your process in place. If you would like to use ours, then definitely grab the course in the comments. And we also have payment plans available if you want it, because that course has been said to be a game changer for optimizing the systems. And I literally reveal the curtain that our 8-figure guests for our Crown Yourself podcast have praised, and we only replicated the same system because why mess with something that is working and working really well and getting praise. We just replicated the system for our Communication Queens guests. So for every guest, they've gone through a system, they've signed a release, they've done all the things. So make sure that you have those steps in place. And if you don't, grab the course in the description. As always, my amazing Communication Queens, stand out because it's your time to be heard. Your story has the power to save a life, so make sure that your voice is heard. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.